President of the Board of Governors, members of the Board of Governors, principals, teachers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, boys of this great school. I'm quite flattered by the brief introduction that the principal very kindly provided on myself, but I first want to start by saying how completely overwhelmed by nostalgia and good memory I was when I drove through the gates this morning. Of course, those days I couldn't drive through the gates, I had to walk through the gates. But besides the point, the whole feeling of being back here was completely moving, brought back some of my fondest memories. And I have to say, during the short time available for me to address you, that I will recount many of the foundations that I built up here in these premises, which helped me along the way in my professional life. My passion for the color red probably started because I was in Hastings House. And I was very proud that when I was house captain, Hastings was cockhouse. Much to the chagrin of my very dear friend Darius Uncle Salia, who I see sitting there staring at me in utter disbelief. Things apart, one of the things that I believe has enabled me to grow my businesses well beyond the imagination of my many critics is my creativity and my passion for thinking outside the box. This creativity and this ability to think outside the box is something that I learned right here in La Martiniere. I did my senior Cambridge exam in December 1971, I believe it was, and by that time I was not only through half my impressionable age, but the seeds of what I would become going forward had already been firmly sown. As I have realized through many, many years and across many parts of the world, skills of communication are paramount. If you can communicate well, half your battle is won, because you're able to express yourself, your ideas, your plans, your thoughts in a manner that is clearly advantageous over others who can't. It is the participation and interest in debates, in dramatics, all under the fine tutelage of perhaps one of my finest teachers ever, John Mason, sat right here in the audience. I can safely say that my years at La Martiniere gave me self-confidence. I have had the privilege of addressing students from many educational institutions across the world, including at IITs and IIMs, and there's one thing that I say to everyone: there is that much a textbook will teach you. The rest has to come from within. I also say that I believe God has given all of us enough and more up there. The difference is how we use it. Some uses brain power more than others. Some have the confidence to extract more of their natural talent than others. But everything ultimately boils down to self-confidence. how many good deeds, projects have remained half done because people didn't simply have the self-confidence to complete the task. On the contrary, some of the world's most successful entrepreneurs have excelled through that spirit of self-confidence. My interest in sports, which I believe is the next big thing that's going to happen in India, happened right here on this playing field, which had, I dare say, a lot more grass in those years. But whether it was hockey, whether it was football or soccer, whether it was cricket, with the rugby, whether it was the PT under a fine but extremely strict gentleman called Mr. Suarez in those years, the fact of the matter is, we were trained hard. And I like to overdo everything. I think the word excess seems to be my middle name. I even volunteered to be a scout, and I further volunteered to be in the NCC as well. So, I had a plate full of activities, but I enjoyed them all immensely. The spirit of competitiveness through these various sporting activities, apart from my academic obligations, is what really created the sportsman spirit in me. And this has manifested itself in multiple ways. Here in Calcutta, you are probably aware that I own and control both McDowell, Mohan Bagan and Kingfisher East Bengal. Don't ask me how I did that. That was not something I learned at school. But nevertheless, two of arguably India's largest clubs are part of my group, and hopefully we will see a football version of an IPL in the not too distant future where these two clubs will excel. Cricket, expressed in Royal Challengers terms, out of 4 editions of the IPL, I'm very proud that in 3 we have reached either the semi-final or the final. Once again, I'm now ably assisted by my son, Siddhartha, who's 24 years old, passionate sportsman, and he deserves the credit for the success of the Royal Challengers in more ways than one. But as you can see, the sporting culture has been well kindled within the family. The acquisition, and I'd rather say bold acquisition, of a Force India Formula One team is once again because I believe in dreams coming true. And dreams can only come true if you're willing and have the ability and self-confidence to roll up your sleeves and use your own hands. If you wait for things to happen, they'll never happen. If you depend on others to help you all the time, it's not going to happen. It's what you make of it that matters most. I have been involved in motorsports from a very young age. I think one thing wasn't mentioned, but during the last year or two of school, I used to drive here in a rather noisy Standard Herald, which had its silencer removed. And incidentally, it was painted red. But my passion for motorsports has been there for many years. I remember going to the Alipore circuit and racing there as well. So it's in the blood. Of course, acquiring a Formula One team is a completely different ballgame. First of all, I never believed that an Indian could have a Formula One team. It was just too expensive, too technologically advanced, and perhaps a bit too glamorous for our then conservative society. Things have come a long way. I inherited a team that was last. Today, we are fighting with world champions such as Mercedes. In just 3 years, it isn't as if we went and spent a lot of money, because monetary resources are difficult to come by. I kind of probably operate on 1/4 the budget that a Mercedes or a Ferrari or a McLaren will operate on, but we are punching well, well above our weight. And the art of punching above your weight was learned right here in this building. That's what I call self-confidence. And as we've moved along, Formula One has not only become more relevant in India, the fan following is growing, commercial opportunities are unfolding themselves, and as you all know, we shall have our first ever Indian Formula One Grand Prix in Noida on 30th of October this year. So what the gamble that I perceived I took back in 2007 will start to pay dividends from 2011 onwards. I don't forget school that easily because as a Member of Parliament, I hang around in the Central Hall when my colleagues, some of them from La Martiniere, decide to belong to the BJP, decide to disrupt the proceedings. And there's one thing in common among all of us, we all have one very bad habit. We're all smokers. We have one little room in the corner of Central Hall where you're allowed to go and smoke. So invariably there's Chandan Mitra, invariably there's Paranjoy Goa Thakurta and Swapan Das Gupta, all of whom are former La Martiniere students. I of course keep in touch with many others. I had the proud privilege of presenting various medals, including the Good Conduct Medal. And I'll tell you something that touched my heart very, very deeply. When I was in school, Rafiq Ganji got the Good Conduct Medal. He was my classmate. Several years later, I think only about 5 or 6 years ago, we were on a television show together, a reality show. It was on me, and the director and producer had got a whole bunch of people who were my friends to make surprise appearances and confront me and ask me questions in front of the audience. Rafiq Ganji came, spoke so touchingly about me that I was almost in tears, handed me the La Martiniere Good Conduct Medal and said, "Brother, you deserve this more than I did." That is the Martinian spirit. What an outstanding gesture. The principal talked about the Martinian spirit. I can go on and on talking about what I learned, what others learned, how we all interact, and what the true Martinian spirit is. But time is short. I know we have a schedule to adhere to. All I can say is I consider myself fortunate and privileged to have been educated at this great institution. I want to thank not only those who were involved in teaching me at that time, but the institution itself. I want to say to all of you that you can achieve a lot more than any one of us have. Just believe in yourselves. Understand that you can do it. And as you go forward in life, kindle that spirit of self-confidence, the solid, excellent foundations that this school and this institution provides to you. And God bless you all. Thank you for inviting me.